Welcome, beautiful people, and thank you for joining us on Till the Wheels Fall Off, a podcast by Two Folk Couple. I'm Matt.
And I'm Paige.
And we're here to inspire others, to bring you guys into our lives and tell you a little bit about our journey. Over 20 years together, we've learned a few things.
We're going to work toward being the best version of yourself possible. We're going to dig into building a positive mindset, discuss mental health, addiction recovery, improving fitness, building businesses, and insight into what it takes to navigate life today.
Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
Hey, every so often, I guess I just kind of get it in me to record a message to people that are still out there struggling. Maybe people who are, I don't know, maybe someone sent this to you because they're concerned about you. Maybe you've been thinking about becoming better in some way, and drinking or using drugs is at the center of your life. And I can relate. I was one of you too. I've been sober for 11 years now, but I wasn't always this way. There was a time in my life where I struggled big time. Like, I drank every day. I used drugs of some kind every single day, but I was functioning. Like, don't get me wrong, I was functioning. I went through school like this. I got A's in school. I was on, student investment committee. I was successful in business at a young age. Like, outward appearances, like I was cool. Things were straight. I was all good. But on the inside, I felt like I was missing something. And my wife, no doubt, felt like I was missing something. And so this is just a message from me to people that are struggling out there. And it's just more or less a plea for me to somebody else to consider some things. Consider some things about your life. Consider, are you really where you want to be? Is everything that she or he is saying to you totally bullshit? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, we got a couple of announcements.
Hold on. So is this a shareable episode for
Absolutely.
those that are listening?
Yeah.
Because our typical listeners are on the other side, or the partner. The
yes.
wheelies. So this is for those that
Absolutely. I think this is the fourth one of these that we've done. So
okay.
If you've got someone in your life and you listen to the show and they don't, like, this is designed to be shareable. Like, I'm going to try to approach this in a way that's not going to piss anybody off. It's just, listen, like, I'm just a dude who got to the other side of this, and I'm just going to try to present a message as best I can. It's not going to land on everyone's ears, but maybe one person. Like, I'm just going to cast a wide net of hope that, hey, if that dumbass can figure it out, then maybe I can.
You're not dumb. Please stop.
I'm incredibly dumb, but I'm going to see if I can cast a wide net of hope, and maybe one person will hear it and go, well, if that guy figured it out, then why not me? And, like, you have that magical thought, why not me? Because it's really not as, I say it's not complicated. It is a bit, but it's worth it. And I'm going to try to just present that case, just my perspective on this. Okay. So yeah, shareable, okay. Absolutely shareable.
Okay.
First things first, though, we've got some announcements real quick. Hey, our hats and shirts finally came in.
Thanks, boo.
I've been working on this and talking about it for the better part of 2 months, I think, but they're finally here. Paige is rocking the tee. It says, "In my villain era." This is a shout out, T Swift. I am a Swiftie.
Yes, you are.
Don't judge me.
I'm not judging you.
I like her songwriting. I think she's solid.
He is the Swiftie in the relationship.
Catchy songs too. But anyway, so hey, if you were sent this episode and you're wondering what the hell's this about, this is kind of corny, this is kind of BS. Hey, they're just playing into the stuff that she says. Here's the reason that this shirt exists is because oftentimes when people see something wrong with someone else and they speak up, they get called a villain before they get thanked. And so for a long period of time, they walk around life thinking that they're a villain because they're speaking up for what's right, what they believe in, what the best thing for the family unit is, or what the best thing for you is. Mm-hmm. And they're called a villain. They're vilified by everyone, family
just by
members.
Protecting themselves.
Yeah, and speaking up and saying, hey,
and standing up for themselves.
You can't talk to me like that anymore. You can't do these things in our home anymore. You can't treat me this way anymore. You can't treat them this way anymore. You're called a villain. And that's not really being a villain. It's just you're living authentically for the first time in a very long time. And so we encourage people to lean into that. Like, I don't want people hiding. Like, we're the opposite of Al-Anon. We are not anonymous. I want people to be proud of the person they're becoming. And so This is a way to lean into it and say, yo, I'm a wheelie. I do listen. If they're villains, then I'm a villain too. Rock with me. Yeah. So that's what the shirt's about. And we got hats. Hats are in.
Super comfy. We've got black ones and white ones.
These are women's size, by the way.
Yeah.
If you're a guy who wears like a smaller size hat, it probably fits you, but it's a low crown hat. So like on me, it sort of looks like a swim cap.
Yeah, it doesn't look that cute on you.
You can wear it backwards. You could totally wear it backwards.
Yeah,
They're
it looks
adjustable.
cute backwards on you, but don't wear it the other way. But I have a tiny head and you have a huge head, and this is just not going to work for you.
Yeah, like my fitted hat size is 7 3/8, so it doesn't fit me. But I know a guy like my age who wears a 6 7/8. It's a small hat.
I don't know
Our son's got a
sizes.
bigger head, and he's like 10.
He's got a bigger head than me.
Yeah, he does for sure. Big headed.
See, you're smart because you have a big head.
I
Remember
don't
that.
think
Next
volume necessarily equates
next
to
time you call
intelligence.
yourself dumb, remember that.
Okay. Well, anyway, hats are available on our website, tufo.com. Hey, recovery rocks as well.
Yes.
If you were sent this episode, this might be something you want to consider. I'm not just saying it so we can sell rocks, because this is a really, really, really awesome way to appreciate someone who cares about you, someone that has walked through hell and back with you across hot coals and been in the shit with you. It is a token of recovery for a spouse or partner. Someone that, like, we put through hell. Like, I put my wife through hell for many, many, many years. And like personally, and we'll get to this, I don't believe that 12 steps are the best way to recover necessarily. I think the best way is the one that works for you. It's just happened to be the way that I got sober. I'm convinced that anything would have worked. This is just what I walked into.
Right.
But either way, they give you chips like, hey, 30 days sober. Like, let's recognize that. You get a chip, go home with it. 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, a year. And I would come home and show her, and she's like, that's great. But I just sensed that like she felt a bit neglected and left out. So to prevent that for everyone else, we made these rocks. It's got our logo on the front. On the back, it just says, thank you for being my rock. A really cool way to show appreciation for someone that's been through hell with you. And they're available on our website as well.
Yep.
Next things up, we've got a course,
Yay.
Independently Strong. We're, as I mentioned, the opposite of Al-Anon. Like, we don't work 12 steps. We work Independently Strong. Independently Strong is a first of its kind course that is designed to walk a spouse or partner through their own recovery journey, because the fact of the matter is that addiction doesn't just affect the person that's putting the substances in their body. Like, when I was going through this, no doubt, like, my liver was in really rough shape. I was
physically
in bad mental health and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
But, my actions affected everyone around me
Right.
substantially. And it affected you severely.
Right.
And you spent years in therapy going through, your own healing journey. And we kind of got together and with the licensed therapist, Dr. Christopher Taylor, who's our clinical architect of the course, and decided like, hey, if we had to go back and do it again, how would we design this? And so it's got my perspective being a recovered addict. And it's mostly led by Paige, being spouse and partner who had to work through this and who has also helped many, many other spouses and partners of people who have substance abuse disorders. And it's amazing. It's 10 modules long. You also get access to weekly calls with Paige. There's Zoom calls. Really, really, really
Community
helpful.
style. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get 75% off by entering the code Wheelies75 at checkout. And you can find the course link by going to our website. That's twfo.com, or by going to independentlystrong.com. Last couple things and we'll wrap it up. We've got a weekly newsletter that goes out every single week. It's completely free. You can sign up by going to our website. All the way to the bottom. It's at the very bottom. It says, hey, subscribe to the newsletter. Enter your email address. I swear we will not spam you or send you a bunch of BS or sell it to, marketers or China or wherever people send data.
I don't know how that works. We just send you the newsletter.
There are like
and
data
some blog
farms out there
posts.
that they'll buy the crap. I'm not giving it to anybody. It's protected. It's safe.
No.
Hey, and the last things here, we've got a free community as well.
Yes.
The Tufo community, which is an incredible resource for people. Community is, and we'll talk about the importance of community later on, but to be around people that are going through it, who have gone through the same thing, sometimes just
This is not for people in recovery.
No.
Like
This is for spouses and partners.
Right.
It's like, listen, like guys like me, hey, if you're like me and you're listening, like we've got resources out there. Spouses and partners don't have any. So we made one.
Yeah.
We made one that's accessible 24/7 online, and it's through Facebook. You can find the link to that, the shortcut to it, by going to our website or clicking the link in any of our social media profiles. It's in there as well.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all we've got for announcements. Yeah. Exhale. So back to the episode. So this one kind of came about sort of by accident. Like, we had planned on doing an episode that maybe we'll do
Totally
some point
different.
in the future. It's totally different subject. And we were talking about it. And I've just been sort of fired up today.
Yeah, Matt's been very fiery today.
I don't know what the deal is with that. It's not like, I'm not like discontent or angry or anything
No.
like that.
You want me to analyze you?
You want to analyze this? You want to give like Go for it. Billy Crystal.
I think you're overstimulated and you haven't been able to work out because of your back.
That is a good point.
And you haven't really you haven't had a good outlet with this much lately.
Yeah.
You know, I have my Pages perspective. You have your newsletter and stuff, but like you haven't really been able to get some things off your chest that you want to get off your chest. You know, like the balance is not balanced yet.
Yeah. And I don't know. I've had some recovery related things go on here in the last few days, like seeing some really cool stuff from people. Like people that have completely changed their lives. And a guy called me this evening. This guy called me and he was talking to me about some, we were talking about honesty last week. I met with him for coffee and he was talking about honesty. And I was like, are you ever dishonest? Like on a daily basis, just consider if you've been honest or dishonest. It's sort of like maintenance stuff. You just kind of like check yourself because as we'll get to here a little bit later, like drinking and drugs aren't really your problem. No. Like, let's be real. Like those are solutions to problems. Like that's what they really are. When I get stressed, I drink. When I get angry, I drink. When I'm happy, I drink. When I, like anything, like any reason I could find, like that was just what I did. That was like my default. I would just do those sorts of things. But I found that when I removed the substances, there was so much shit underneath it. There's so much stuff that had to be dealt with. I think we oversimplify sobriety. I think a lot of people do this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oversimplify sobriety. And I think that we see spouses and partners do it a lot, right? Like we are big proponents of like separate the behaviors from the substances, please. Like stop relating everything your husband does to just drinking. Like it's not just drinking. That's such an oversimplification. It is much more complex.
Yeah.
Like people are just more complex than that.
Absolutely.
Like
it's not that simple of a solution.
No,
you just stop drinking and everything will be fine. It just doesn't work that way.
Substances, they enhance behaviors, they exacerbate behaviors, they exaggerate behaviors, but they do not cause all the behaviors that you may have issues with. So like me, for instance, I can only speak for myself really, but I've worked a lot of people through this too. Like a lot of the things that spouses have the biggest problems with have nothing to do with drinking at all. Nothing. Like someone who's a liar. Like you lie about shit. You lie about shit because you don't want to argue, because it's easier not to tell the truth, because it's just, you might think it's not that big of a deal, but we start to tell little lies. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's sort of like the ripple effect of lies, Eventually you're telling lies to cover up lies and you can't remember what you said. And then like you just sort of lose who you are. And so you're just kind of this walking shell of a person. And so like that's the stuff they have issues with. It's not just the drinking. That's just what's identifiable. So we look at that and say, that's the problem. It's this person's drinking. And it's not the drinking. It is not the drinking. Y'all, it is not the drinking. It is not just the drugs. No. And I know that because I did this stuff too. It's like it's really easy for someone who struggles with substance abuse disorder to say it's just the drinking, especially people who've had affairs. It's like, look at the affair and say it was just because of the coke. Because it was just the coke. I just had bad judgment. Yes, I can see you may have bad judgment when you're under the influence of cocaine or amphetamines. Those are the two big ones. But alcohol as well. But let's be honest, there's so much more going on than that.
Well, yeah, but either way, high or not, that affects your partner, that behavior.
No doubt it does. I'm just talking about the substance versus the behavior.
No, I know. I understand. I'm just making that clear.
Substances make these things easier, but they don't cause them. Right. No more than they cause abusive behaviors or anything else.
I just don't like the excuse of, I did that because I was.
No, man.
It's like, okay, I understand that you did that maybe because you feel like that's why you did it, but you still impacted other people.
Yeah,
You're not just hurting yourself, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just, it's a cop-out. It's a total cop-out. But it's also... I hesitate to say frustrating because it's not frustrating, because I don't like lose patience with people because they don't know, they don't understand that it's not the substance behavior. But when people are obsessively trying to get someone to stop drinking, they're sort of asking for the wrong thing, which is kind of what we're going to discuss today, which is like, what is recovery really about?
Right. And I think that society has just it's like you said, we oversimplify. Like we just look at it as being this one thing that if we just take that away, it'll make everything better. Just doesn't work that way. Yeah,
like there's this bucket called sobriety. Spouses call this bucket sobriety, but the bucket's actually called the name of whoever's listening to this. It's like for me, like that bucket's called Matt, and like all these things exist in that bucket of me. They make me up. But for spouses, it's like if I can just get them sober, then all that stuff will fix itself. That is false.
Yeah,
absolutely false.
Right.
Like for me, like I promise you, when you get sober, you're going to feel better. Like immediately you're going to feel better. You're going to feel more level headed. You're going to feel clearer. You're going to sleep better. Your mood will be more stable. Like you'll feel better, but you're also going to feel better in a lot of other ways. You're going to feel depression better. You're going to feel anger better. You're going to feel anxiety better. You're going to feel all this stuff. Like that's the shit. That's the shit that makes people drink. That's the shit. It's the underlying mental stuff.
But it's the uncomfortable feelings that we all have as human beings.
Sure. Yeah.
We're supposed to feel these feelings. We're not supposed to numb them.
And for some other people, there are underlying mental disorders that have never really been dealt with.
Right.
Never been dealt with, like depression, PTSD.
Trauma, yeah.
Trauma, all kinds of stuff. And like, listen, like man to man, like I get it. Like that stuff, we weren't really raised to talk about that kind of stuff. Like I'm 38. Yeah, 38. I just turned 30. I fucking start to forget, you know? Like you get to a certain age, you kind of start to forget. I'm not even that old, but
I'm 35.
She's never 35. She's always 35. Sorry. Forever be 35. Even though we were born in the same year. But anyway, that's like, I get it. Like man to man, I understand that it's tough to talk about a lot of these things because we weren't brought up to talk about this kind of shit. Men show strength. Men show resilience. Men show perseverance. Men don't talk about that kind of stuff. Men are stoic. That's not true, right? It's not that I don't believe that there's a time and a place for stoicism or perseverance or strength or any of those quote unquote traditional masculine qualities. But I just think that in a relationship, in a marriage, you've got to have the full color wheel. You've got to be able to display all these things. That's just one of them. That's just one of the traits. That's it. It's a small one. But for a lot of guys, that's all we know. That's all we know. That's how we were brought up because we were raised by a generation that was fresh off of, you know, the great generation that never talked about any of this stuff. And you know, it's kind of wild. This is just sort of a tangent, but everyone talks about like, you know, my grandparents stayed married for 40 years. They never complained about any of this stuff. My grandfather drank every single day. Uh-huh. Okay. Well, things were a little effing different back then, right? Women didn't have the same sorts of...
They didn't have rights.
They didn't have a voice. They didn't like...
No.
Things are different today, okay? Women are the primary breadwinner in 40% of U.S. households. That's almost half. And it's approaching half very quickly. So at one time it was, he goes to work, he takes care of all that stuff, he provides security, and that's what's most important. Women were to raise children. And as men, that's just, you know, we could kind of get away with murder because that's the way things were. Women also couldn't file for divorce for a very long time. Women couldn't even open bank accounts on their own for a very long time. They couldn't even officially own property, even if someone passed away for a very long time.
Yeah, so they had to tolerate shit.
They just
in
dealt
order to
with
get
it.
through it.
Like, that was survival for them.
That was survival.
So you can miss me with your grandparents were really happy. I bet you they're not nearly as happy as you think. And just because the bar was so low doesn't mean it was a wonderful relationship.
Right. It was so different than we have way more rights now and we're able to speak up and do things.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So as a modern man in the world, I don't think that I'm by any means like the voice of reason when it comes to modern masculinity or even recovery per se. I'm just a guy who's figured it out and I've helped other people figure it out. And my goal, if I could wish for anything, is that one person that hears this feels a little bit better about the just the prospect of being sober. Perspective sobriety, like being sober curious, like giving this stuff a shot. And what does it actually mean? Mm-hmm. What does it actually mean? Here's something I can promise you. If you just remove the substance, you're going to be fucking miserable. Yeah. If you just remove the substance, you're going to be absolutely miserable. Yeah. If that is your goal, if that is what you think is enough, let's start over. It's not enough for all those reasons I just described.
What if you just shifted your perspective and say, like, I just want to be, you know, I just want to work on growing up. I just want to work on being a better person. I want to work on personal development. I want to work on things like that.
Here's where I was at with it. When I got sober, what I wanted more than anything was to be a better man. Yeah. I just wanted to be a better man. It was about that. Like, I felt like my manhood had been challenged. Like, I wanted to be a better man. I wanted to be a good father. I wanted to be a good husband. I wanted to be present in the lives of the people that loved me. I wanted to be a leader in my career with the people that were close to me. Like, I wanted to be something. I wanted to have a purpose.
Did I challenge your manhood?
Yeah, every day. every single day. Are you kidding me?
You said that and I was like, wait, hold on. Okay.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, I think that you were telling me like more times than I can count, like, this is not how a husband acts. This is not what a man does. This is not what you do. Like, this is not the bar, you son of a bitch. Like, the bar is not that low. Are you kidding me? You think the bar is that low where you can just come home after a day of work and just disappear and get shit-faced and do whatever you want and disappear on the weekends and do whatever you want? Like, that is not what I signed up for.
And be emotionally unavailable and all the things.
All that stuff. Like, just, not help out around here. Like, all this stuff. And like, once again, like, you were totally okay being the villain. And I'm glad that you were the villain, because if not for that, I don't know if I'd be here. I don't know if I'd be where I am today if not for you constantly challenging me. And I think you can look at that one of two ways. I think you can look at that and say, like, a lot of guys will say that's like nagging. Like, you're ungrateful. Like, this is the best I can do. This is all I have to offer. It's all I know. Like, while you may think those things are true, and like, I'm not going to invalidate your feelings and say that you don't feel that way. Like, I understand why you feel that way. I do. I totally get it, because I felt the same way at one time. I'm just saying that you're unthinking if you believe that sobriety is enough. That's all. Like, it's just not true. Because when you remove that substance, you will be miserable. You'll be miserable because you've adapted to a way of coping that involves a substance. Mm-hmm. Like, my days were only as good as how many pills I had in my pocket and how much liquor we had at home. That's what my day really depended on. Mm-hmm. Like, no matter what happened at work or anything else, like, I don't know if I've ever said this on the show. My favorite part about addiction, and this is a crazy thing to say, but it's true. Like, it'd be disingenuous for me not to say this. My favorite part about addiction, I shouldn't say addiction. My favorite part about substances, about alcohol, about drugs, about all of it, is the guarantee of it all.
Right.
The guarantee of it all, that no matter how bad my day was, no matter what kind of shit I ran into, that I could come home and there was warm, fuzzy feelings in a bottle. That was the best part. And I think that's something that a lot of people maybe haven't quite identified about their use. That's what it's really about. That's what it's about. It's about that guarantee of feelings. It's the ability to control your emotions. Control
your emotions.
It's the only way I could control my emotions, man.
But what happens when you control your emotions and you don't feel them?
The thing is that it works for a period of time. And that's how I fell into this trap in the beginning, is that it worked for a period of time. And anyone listening understands what I mean. I remember mine was in like the moment. It was in college, stressed out as all can be, studying and trying to do well in school. And, like, I wasn't a smart kid. Like, I graduated high school with like a 1.2 GPA. I had never studied before. I'd never had to deal with like the pressure of grades and everything else. My parents told me, listen, if you get A's in college, then we will take care of your rooming, your housing situation. Like, they were going to pay for my school and make sure I had a place to live, give me grocery money and whatnot. So my parents were going to pay for me to go to school, but I would lose that ride if I dropped below an A average. So I put a lot of pressure on myself, not just for that, but also for you. Like, I wanted to show you that I wasn't an idiot. I guess I wanted to show myself that I wasn't an idiot. But I remember struggling and then coming home, and I bought a 6-pack of Tall Boys from that little gas station up the street. Remember that one with those
the black bags and
with those little
burritos?
The burritos, yeah, they had those
burritos were
so
fire.
good, so good. But anyway, I remember drinking like 4 or 5 beers and just feeling like, dude, I have no problems. Like, I found the fucking trick to life. Like, I figured it out. This is how you get through shit. This is it. This is great. Like, and it worked. It worked.
So in college, it wasn't about the partying and like feeling good all the time.
It was sometimes.
It was
sure. No. It was sometimes.
Yeah, but
that was the first moment I realized I could really control my emotions with this trick. And like, I recognized it at the moment, but I didn't recognize how bad that was. Well, no, or what it would do to me later in life.
You figured it out too when you first took hydrocodone.
That was my first magical.
That was your first like, moment. Oh, I need to take this.
I need to chase this all the time
because this is the secret. This is how I'm going to get through life. This
You're
made
right. So
me feel normal.
It started earlier than that.
So just start earlier.
But I remember this moment in school. I was like, wow, I can really control my emotion, and it worked. That's the thing, is that it worked. I went to bed that night. I slept like a rock. I woke up the next day. I felt rested. I was ready to go. Like, it worked. And then it worked again. And then it worked again. And then it worked again. Now, at some point, it stopped working. I concede that. At some point, it stops working. and everyone who's ever been down the road where you drink too much or you use too many drugs knows what I'm talking about. At some point, it stops working the way it used to.
Yeah.
At some point, you just sort of reached for it like impulsively. It's just, it's an impulse. It's like you just do it. You don't know why. It's like when you have an itch, you scratch it, right? It sort of became one of those things where you just did it. You didn't really know why you did it, but it worked in the past, and it kind of worked now, but not as good as it used to, because now the stress was really starting to eat at you. And I look back now and I know why. It's because the more I drank, the less I actually dealt with stuff. And so that shit piled up really high to where you can't really avoid it anymore. You just get drink to oblivion or use drugs to oblivion, and you just kind of forget about everything.
So the saying that you say emotions buried alive, never die, this applies to you as well when people
1,000%
are drinking away their emotions.
Yeah, it's something, and I didn't come up with the quote, but it's something we say here all the time is emotions buried alive never die.
Yeah.
It's true. Like you can bury them for a while and they're out of sight, out of mind, but they come back. They're like zombies, like fucking worms. They come up to the ground and they will haunt you.
Yeah.
They will come back. But anyway, so when I decided to get sober, it was sort of like my manhood had been challenged. I wanted to be a good man. It wasn't just the thought of not drinking or not using a substance. In fact, that was sort of scary to me because I didn't really know what that would look like. I'd never done it before. I tried it a few times on my own, but it was like impossible. I say a few times, I mean like 100. Like I tried to stop many, many times and I couldn't do it on my own. I could stop for a little bit. I could white knuckle a couple of weeks of sobriety. But when I did, I was absolutely miserable. Like I was so miserable. I didn't know what else to do. It all came to a head for me April 12th, 2013. I was in Las Vegas and I was on a business trip, and I had a 9-month-old daughter at the time. And I know a lot of guys want boys. I wanted a little girl so bad. I wanted a little girl. And for reasons I can't quite explain, like I just always wanted to show a little girl that she could be anything in the world. I wanted to show a little girl that she could depend on a man. I wanted to show a little girl that not all men were horrible people. I wanted to show her an example of what to look for one day. I knew we'd have boys. So like I knew we'd have more than one kid, and I knew we'd have a boy. But a girl was like the moon for me. And so we found out we're having a little girl, and like I thought, this is the moment. I've got to get it together. And then she was born, and I fucking fell apart at the seams because I thought
it got worse.
Like my addiction had gotten so bad at that point where I thought I could just stop, and I couldn't. I tried. And like I was so far gone at this point where I realized that if I did stop, I was absolutely miserable. And the only way I could feel better is if I drank again. And that's when I realized like, holy shit, I'm addicted. Like I'm addicted, and it's not even like really manageable anymore. And I don't even want to do it anymore, but I have to. And that's that horrible, horrible place you kind of get to. And anyone listening knows what I'm talking about. That horrible feeling where you can't imagine doing it tomorrow, but you can't imagine not doing it tomorrow. That's the worst fucking feeling in the world. Like I contemplated suicide. I contemplated all kinds of stuff. Like I just can't imagine, like, what do you do about this? And so it came to a head, and I decided to check into treatment. Because I went to Vegas. I took a supply with me to detox myself off of opiates. And like any good addict, I was going to taper down like over 3 or 4 days. And I took every one of them the first day because that's what we do. That's what addicts do. Like once I got in me, I was like, man, there's no stopping. So I checked into treatment, and I didn't really know what to expect in treatment. I just knew that celebrities went in there and they made good movies when they came out, and like musicians made good music. Like everything I knew about, like it was a 12-step based place. Everything I knew about 12 steps came from the movie Fight Club. Have you ever seen Fight Club?
What?
Okay. I wasn't sure. You have, right? All right. Well, anyway, so
yes.
The main character, Edward Norton.
Yes.
Only way he can sleep at night is by going to 12-step groups for like various things, like all kinds of different
all different
stuff.
kinds.
Support groups, 12-step groups. And so that's as much as I knew. And that seemed really corny. Anyway, if I had anything going for me at all, is that I was done. Like I was done when I went in there. I was done. Like I was resolute that this was going to work or I was going to die. That was it. That's where I was at. Like I knew that I wasn't going to keep doing this because I knew that I couldn't face my wife or daughter being this person. I knew that I couldn't hide it without causing some serious problems with everyone. I knew that it was a matter of time before I got arrested for a DWI or DUI or hurt somebody or God knows what, right?
Yeah.
It was a matter of time. The fuse was about to fall into the grenade and it was about to explode. Like I was right there. So sorry, my fidget just fell. I decided to get sober, and I worked, like full disclosure, I worked a 12-step program, but I don't believe that's the best way to get sober. I don't think it's the only way to get sober. I'm not one of these like big book 12-steppers that's like, this is the only way that works. It's not. The best way that works is the way that works for you. And the way that works for you, I would suggest, is something that you haven't created on your own. Because if you look at your life and you look at your experience with trying to stop up to this point, how successful have you been on trying to stop on your own? Obviously not very successful.
Right.
That was my I'm not trying to like judge anybody here. That was my experience as well, which is why I was willing to try anything. If they told me like, if you stand on your head for 5 minutes a day, you'll stay sober, I would have been standing on my head. Like I would have done literally anything. And I'm convinced that literally anything would have worked. I am. I think that the 12 steps kind of wrapped up this nice little package of, hey, we're going to take some ownership of the problem. First of all, then we're going to like go through some of your past and like some of the underlying issues. And then we're going to make nice with the people in your life. And then you're going to continue to work a maintenance program of sorts, and there's some spiritual components built in, which a lot of people have issue with. Full disclosure, I was an atheist. I still don't consider myself religious at all by any stretch. I have some spiritual principles I live by, but it's not the only way to recover. Like smart recovery is out there. It's a very rational perspective on recovery. It's a spinoff of the rational recovery movement, which more or less helps you identify the addictive voice that lives in your head and teaches it to shut the hell up. And you work through some very cognitive based practice, like a cost benefit analysis of addiction. You identify triggers, you come up with a recovery plan. Like you attend meetings every so often to have some sort of a community of people to be around. There's also refuge recovery. There's Life Ring, which is a secular way of recovery. So like there's stuff out there, y'all. There's also therapy, right? Therapy is a thing. It exists, and it's not a scary place to be. Mm-hmm. I think if I had to go back in time and do it all over again, I would have started therapy right off the bat.
Yeah. But I've heard that there's a lot of people who don't want to go to therapy because they feel like they know more than the therapists.
You don't.
Unlikely
you do. You probably wouldn't be drinking a bottle of whiskey a day if you did.
Right.
Just saying. Or taking as many pills as I was taking. I didn't know more. I still don't know more than a therapist. I don't. By the way, we're not therapists. I want to make that clear. We're not therapists.
We just have lots of
not licensed or anything like that. Just got a lot of experience in this, man. I've been through the ringer of life, and if I could help someone else, then that's like I've done my part in this world.
Right.
This is what
we do.
This is my purpose is today. So some of the fears I had wrapped up in early recovery, some of the things that you might be experiencing right now is everything in your life revolves around drinking or using drugs. And I get that. I understand that. Like I could not imagine 4th of July sober. I could not imagine watching a football game sober, especially when you're a Cowboys fan, because they suck.
Yes,
and they will make you want to drink.
You have to expect that these days now.
Yeah, I reframe my expectations. If they're gonna suck, they can't break my heart.
Right.
So they're gonna suck this year. Everything revolves around drinking, like going to the lake, fishing, golf. Drinks after you close a deal at work. If you're in sales, that's all sales really is drinking.
Right.
Celebrations. What do you do whenever you're happy or sad?
Weddings,
whatever. Yeah. Weddings, you name it, man. Like society's built around this poison. And it blows my mind. And I understand that many people do it without any consequence and they manage it like normal adults, but so many others don't. Mm-hmm. They don't. And it's really tough to operate sober in the world. It would be, disingenuous once again for me to say that it's not in the beginning, but you get used to it.
Yeah.
You really do. And like you find new outlets for that stuff. It's tough in the beginning. It's tough sledding in the beginning, right? But so is your first day at whatever career you're in. Like it's tough for a little while, but you get used to it. All right. It's no different than that.
Yeah.
You get used to it. You kind of figure some things out. The next thing is like not knowing how to handle situations sober. Like we talked about like the emotional unavailability of a lot of men and why that is. I have, my thoughts on it. None of them are necessarily supported by data, but when a lot of us aren't taught the language of emotions. We're just not. So whenever something really sad happens, like, am I going to be comfortable crying in front of my family? Am I going to be comfortable talking about my emotions? How do you even talk about my emotions? Like, what even are they? I couldn't even identify them in the beginning.
No.
Man, I had this therapist hand me a feelings wheel.
Feelings wheel.
She said, "Look at this." And I was looking at it like, this looks stupid and corny. It sort of looks like, like when you go to the doctor and like, how much pain are you in? It's like the sad face and it's like the happy face on the other end. It's sort of like that. It's like very elementary, and it felt sort of like degrading and like, like really? Like I'm in kindergarten. Anyway, I didn't know how to identify my emotions. So like, it's really tough to handle anything because you don't know what your emotions even are. Because like we said, anytime you felt anything at all, default was put something in my body.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And I understand your fear around that. I get it. It's also really difficult to ask for help. Really tough to ask for help. And once again, like a lot of men, we don't ask for help, right? Which is what, like, that's the famous thing, right? Men don't ask for directions. That's just another way of saying men don't ask for help. It's just.
Do you feel like you were one of those people who was afraid to ask for help?
Not necessarily, because I did when it mattered, and I'd always been the type of person, like especially in school, like if I had a question about something, I would raise my hand. Like if I don't understand something, I'm going to ask.
I know, and that's something I've always known about you.
This is just a very common one for a lot of people.
Okay.
Like not knowing how to ask for help. A lot of guys don't do this. Like just don't. Like I know a lot of men that suffer in silence. Like truly, like there are men in my life today that are likely thinking about suicide on a monthly basis and have never talked about it. You can sort of read it on people's faces. You know when someone's struggling, but guys that don't talk about it. A lot of guys don't. A lot of women don't too. I mean, a lot of people just don't talk about their emotions. A lot of this has to do with the way you were brought up. It's sort of cultural in some ways, depending on where you were raised and how you were raised. But it's rather difficult. But in recovery, this is sort of the point. Mm-hmm. You ask for help.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking about failures is also a really difficult one for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's just for anybody in general, talking about failures.
I just want you to know that, like, to err is to be human, right? Like, people make mistakes.
We learn from them.
All fail. Like, in my opinion, personally, like, there's no such thing as failure. There's not, and there's no shame allowed in recovery, but there's no shame allowed. Like, there's a difference between saying I am a screw up versus I screwed up. If you're going to say I am a screw up, you are essentially saying that all of your actions have defined you as a person. Everything has defined you as a person, when you and I both know that inside there's an amazing person inside there. You are not your addiction. You are not your addiction. Have you screwed up? Yes, but you are not a screw up. There's a huge difference there. Huge difference. But a lot of times talking about this stuff, it makes it real. Mm-hmm. And so it's very painful. And so a lot of times people feel shame. I just want to implore you not to feel shame. You can feel guilty. Fine. It's temporary. But shame can also be a powerful emotion. Mm-hmm. Shame drives change.
Exactly.
Shame drove me to change. It was the fact that I had failed in every way that I had promised. Like, I used to come home stumbling drunk, man, and tell Paige, I promise you one day I'll be a good man. I didn't say it that articulate, but I used to tell you all the time, I promise you one day I'll be a good man. Don't give up on me. I promise you one day I'll be a good man.
Yep.
And I meant it. I meant every word of it. I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out. But it was really tough to talk about a lot of those failures in the beginning, because you feel like you get one chance and that's it. If that were true, you wouldn't be married right now.
Right.
If that were true, like, there's a lot of grace offered to people in life. Like, if I got what I deserved, I'd be sitting in a penitentiary somewhere.
Right.
That's just the truth of it all. That's facts. I'd be sitting in penitentiary.
And failures and mistakes, like, I like to look at them as learning opportunities.
They're just lessons.
Yeah,
They're
as long
lessons.
as you do something with them.
The only shame in them is if you keep repeating
If you keep
them.
doing it over and over again. Yeah.
Another difficult part about, I think, recovery and sobriety in general, like, you might be someone that has tried to recover before, but you just fall off. Like, maybe you've even had quite a bit of time under your belt. Maybe you've had like 5 years, 6 years, and you fell off. Maybe you've had a few weeks. You're really good at putting 6 months together, or maybe 1 year together, and then you fall off. It requires consistency, maintenance, and discipline. I think for the same reasons that people struggle with weight, people struggle with sobriety. Like, it requires a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's in some way, every day a debt has to be paid. Like, if you want to be shredded on the cover of Men's Health, like, those guys make crazy sacrifices, and they have a lot of discipline. Like they can turn down the ice cream, they can turn down the cookies and the sweets and all this stuff.
And work out 10 times a day.
Yeah, those guys, they exercise a lot. They give up a lot for it, but it requires a ton of discipline.
Right.
Sobriety doesn't even require that much discipline. Like I did the math one time. Actually, let's do the math real quick. So if I go to the treatment center and I talk to people, if I talk to 3 or 4 people on the phone for, let's say 15 minutes at a time, that's 2 hours. Let's say I hit a Saturday morning, like meeting or something like that. That's 3 hours a week, right? So if I'm awake for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's 112 hours. Mm-hmm. If I spend 4 of those in recovery, that is less than 4% of my time.
Yeah, but that's just like for sobriety, but you're still doing stuff every day that is part of this, of personal development and growth. So you add on to that, it should be a lot of time.
I call those things that's just adulting.
Just adulting.
That's adulting.
Just having
right?
discipline, eating right, working out,
okay.
taking time for yourself.
Oh, you mean that sort of stuff. I thought you meant just like not stealing or something like that.
No, I mean like taking time for yourself as self-care, reading personal development books. Just
okay.
All the hard. There's hard things.
Okay, you're right.
Therapy,
no, you're right.
If you go to therapy, so it is a lot more time because there are drastic changes that have to be made in order to be successful with this.
You're right. So if we're talking about 112 hours in a week spent, let's say that you're reading a bit. Let's say you're going to therapy a couple times a week. Let's say that you're spending 12 hours a week on recovery, right? So that's 2 hours a day, take Sunday off. In some way, you're doing something personal development, working out. Let's even say it's 3 hours a day. Okay.
Okay.
On 7 days a week, that's 21 hours. We're talking about, hang on. What did I say it was? 12 hours?
Yeah.
10% of your time.
Okay.
10% of your time is really dedicated toward this stuff. But that 10% pays dividends like you would not believe.
Yeah.
That is a small price to pay. It is the greatest return on investment of all time. It really is. Like the ROI on taking care of yourself and working towards sobriety and maintaining your sobriety and strengthening your relationships, working in therapy, exercising, reading, listening to shows.
Right.
Like,
so think about how much time is wasted right now. If it's all that time you could be doing these things for personal development, you're using or drinking.
I did the math on that too.
Did
the math on that too. So I had a dealer in South Dallas.
Yeah, you spent a lot of
for me it was an hour. It was an hour to get there.
Yeah.
And then it was an hour there, hour back. I went twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 4 hours a day just spent driving. Now, if I calculate the time that I actually spent getting buzzed and maintaining my buzz, I was spending. It was like almost 40 or 50 hours a week.
Yeah.
That I was
It was like a full-time job.
It is a full-time job. And that's another piece of it. It's so exhausting.
And you're not growing at all and during any of those times.
No, I was
And
stagnant.
you can't say that your job is helping you grow either because that's not a purpose. That's just something you're doing. So you're not spending any time on personal development.
No, and I know a lot of successful people that have kept some serious habits. Like, dude, we're resilient.
Like, I understand, but what is successful?
Like I've known doctors, I've known lawyers,
okay, that's monetary success.
I mean, people who have very high profile positions, things like that, but they're able to maintain this sort of thing. So I just sort of want to make the point that just because you're able to do those things doesn't mean that you're really, really where you should be. I think even those people could be exponentially
way
higher up on the scale of the corporate ladder or bigger company or more responsibilities and all the good stuff that comes with it. If
better marriages, better parenting, better everything,
healthier family, you would, like it's just so much better. Like the ROI is incredible.
Right.
It's incredible for that small price to pay. It takes consistency, maintenance, and discipline though, which is difficult. Like I was very undisciplined. I was like, it's just kind of like whatever felt good I was going to do.
Right.
Like whatever felt good, I'm just going for it. I'm really not thinking about long-term anything. I just need to feel better right now.
Well, a lot of people think that life is just about partying, having a good time and feeling comfortable. But in reality, you've got to feel all the feelings. You need to feel all the things.
Right. So it's difficult. I understand that, but it does get better. It gets easier like a lot of other things. And it's a very, very small time commitment in comparison to being a full-time addict or alcoholic. I promise you that. Another tough part is like, this wasn't hard for me, but I know a lot of people that struggle with this one, is taking accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Like owning when you were wrong, like the ways that you might have harmed somebody else. That's what this show is about. Like that's not this particular episode, but our show. That's what our show's about. A lot of it. It's validating the people who don't get it at home. It's validating the people that have been harmed by us. And I don't say this to make anyone feel worse about themselves, but you have fucked people up around you.
Yeah, you're not just harming yourself.
I say that with love, but I'm being sincere when I say it.
This is just reality. It's the reality of it.
The things we say that we think aren't that big of a deal, or the things we say that we don't even remember.
That's what I was going to get at.
They remember everything. They've been present for every bit of it. Those words mean something. Just because you were drunk and you were half-ass serious about it, they don't know the difference. Mm-hmm. They only know this version of you, and it hurts them. So when we get sober, facing that music it's difficult for a lot of people. I mean, they approach that once again with a ton of shame. I don't want y'all to feel shame for it. You can feel bad for those things. The only shame you should feel is if you keep doing them.
Yep.
Like there is a way out, whatever method of recovery you choose. And we talked about it. Like just pick something. And if you're someone that's like, hey, I'm just going to figure it out on my own. I have seen people do that. I'm just going to say that they are such the exception. They're a special type of person, and I recommend no one do it. And I've even Celeste is someone I keep going back to because she did this. Celeste Yvonne. She wrote a book called It's Not About the Wine. It's an amazing book. If you've ever struggled with a substance, especially if you're a woman, it's a great one. But even if you're not, I think it's a really, really, really good book.
I agree.
In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and say, buy the book and read it, man or woman. I think for me, it was so powerful for me to understand a lot about what women just go through on a daily basis that wasn't coming from this voice that was like critical, just explaining a perspective. It's so well put together. I mean,
and it wasn't coming from me, your wife.
Right. It was great. It was amazing. And she's also like me in the fact that she struggled with alcohol, but really, really good book. But she did it on her own. But she said if she could go back and change anything, she would have had a community of some kind.
Right.
Some kind. Because there are people out there who, listen, like this group stuff's not really for me. I'm like, I get it. But at the same time, get over yourself if you can. I'm not saying you need to go sit through 12-step meetings. I'm not saying it's the best way to get sober, the only way to get sober. But being around people with shared understanding of what it's like to be like this is really, really, really helpful. And what I found anyway were people that like got it like I've never met before. Like these guys just get it. Like they understand me. Like you don't have to explain yourself in there because everyone already gets it. Like you walk in with the prerequisite for understanding that is like, it's undefinable. Like everyone just gets it. And it's an amazing place to be. I've never left a meeting with someone else who struggled with substance abuse feeling worse. And here's why I go today. And here's why I think it's important to go. Because at some point, let's say that you hear this message, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm in. Say less. I'm going to give it a shot. 100% I'm in. Here's what will happen eventually, because it happens to everyone. You will have the thought one day, I think I could have a drink. I think I'm good now. It's been years. I'm good. Like I can have a drink. I'm fine. The reason I go to meetings today isn't to learn how to be better at being sober necessarily. Like
right.
I kind of have my own path for that now. It is to see the scouts come back with arrows in their ass, reminding me that it doesn't get any better. It's to hear the guy who's 30 years older than me tell the story about how he ruined 3 families and lost 4 or 5 businesses and millions of dollars because he just didn't heed the warnings from everyone before him. I go to be reminded that that's what's waiting for me if I decide to get clever and cute about it.
Yeah.
That's why I go. That's why. And it's really validating to hear that, like, listen, there are people who are 30, 40 years sober who go to these meetings. I'm like, I want with that guy. Like, how are you doing it? And he still shows up to the meeting. So I'm like, all right, well, if you're doing it, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be reminded that my best thinking got me in the biggest pickle of my life. And so
cheesy.
So I have to do something different, which is what got me here. I have to do something different. So if you decide to go to Life Ring meetings, you will hear that stuff there. If you go to Refuge Recovery meetings, you'll hear that stuff there. If you go to Smart Recovery meetings, you will hear that stuff there. It's so important to work I call it a program. Let's just use the word program in general. I don't want you to think that's just a 12-step program, but just something. Do something with a better track record than what you have. That's all. There are people who figure it out on their own. I'm just going to go on a limb here and saying you're probably not going to be it. Just going out on a limb, just playing the odds here, right? Just playing the odds. You're probably not going to be that person. Just do something that's got a track record of success and try it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of therapists that have success here. I think that a program of some kind plus therapy is probably the best option.
Agreed.
But I cannot tell you how many emails are in my inbox right now from distraught spouses with the worst stories of emotional abuse, affairs, all kinds of stuff with someone who is sober physically because they're not doing anything for the underlying issues.
Yeah.
I have an inbox full of them.
Yeah.
Full of them. They all have one thing in common. They are not working any sort of a program. Mm-hmm. None. They just thought they'd quit drinking and that's going to be enough. You are unthinking if you think that's going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. I promise you that. Another thing that's difficult is just that very thing. When you find out that it's not about the alcohol.
Yeah.
That the problem is actually between your ears.
Right.
It lives in your ideas, your beliefs and behaviors and your attitudes. That's where the problem is. For me, it's oversimplification, kind of how we started the episode, to say that it's just the substance. If I can just get him to quit drinking, everything's going to be fine. It's just not true. Mm-mm. It's not true. It's so much deeper than that. Some people have real psychological issues they've never dealt with. They have all kinds of disorders, any number of them that have never really been addressed. And their solution for those things and for that feeling that they have, that disturbance that lives in their mind, is just to drink or take a drug. Deal with the disturbance, you'll find sobriety. Work toward healthier behaviors. For me, and sobriety was just a byproduct of those things.
What were your underlying issues?
I don't put a whole lot of stock into ADHD because I think that it's so overdiagnosed. I think a lot of people could make the claim they've got ADHD to some degree. Uh-huh. I live with that, like a very hard time paying attention. So I got addicted to Adderall.
Right.
I was taking 90 milligrams a day and just a normal day. And that was like just an average day for me because of it. So that was a big one for me. I know that was part of it, what played into it. I think I have an anxious disposition where back when I was in active addiction, I like to control outcomes. Like I had control issues, man. Like I don't even know if that's a disorder. It's an underlying issue for sure. It's just that I had control issues. Like when I couldn't determine outcomes and things got unsure, I would drink to make myself feel better or forget about them.
Okay.
Like that was another one. I'm a malcontent. Like I'm just never really happy with anything. Like I'm just never really pleased. I'm never content. I never feel like I have enough of anything. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't have enough of it. So if I was sitting around, I'm like, this is so lame. Like reality is just lame. Like how does anyone just sit around and just do this dry, like raw dog reality? Like I just couldn't do it. I could not stand the boredom and the monotony of it all. Like that was, and I don't even know what you call that. What do you call that? Like, is that even a disorder? I was just malcontent, man. Like I just never really learned how to sit in my emotions and just be.
I just think that's almost immature in a way. And I don't want to say that too bad, but or it's just a society thing where we've tried so hard to get rid of boredom as if it's a bad thing. It kind of can start as children, like here, take this, go do this, go color because you're bored, go have a snack because you're bored, go do this because you're bored, instead of trying to figure out that boredom's okay. Like boredom's not a bad thing.
I don't even know I don't know. Like I think back to when I was a young kid and I had this in me. Like I remember feeling like these just moments where like I needed some excitement. Like I need something to change right now. Like I just need to feel different. Like, and I don't know what that is. Is it a dopamine issue? Is it common?
No, that's not. You're not special by having that.
You felt that way? Have you ever felt that way?
Yes.
Just curious.
Yes. Boredom sucks.
Like to the degree that you're willing to do something to change.
No, I mean, I can have the urge to want to do something to change it, but I know that it's okay to be bored. And if I outweigh what I'm going to do.
So maybe my issue is impulsivity. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's an underlying issue of mine. Just impulsive, like incredibly impulsive.
Okay.
And I'm still that way to some degree, like much more tamed and balanced and more mature about things. But like I'm still impulsive. Every so often I'll wake up and be like, we're going on vacation. Like, let's go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Like I can be impulsive at times. And I think that it's just, every so often I can run that to extremes where like I found out that a substance could change my reality really quickly. And so I did that. But a lot of people have depression. A lot of people have anxiety issues. Anxiety is a big one.
Right.
I don't feel comfortable in my own skin unless I have my superpower, which is my drug or this drink. Mm-hmm. And then I can talk to people. Then I can go face to face. Then I can, some people go to work this way. They can only talk to other people whenever they're effed up on something because they have anxiety, crippling anxiety.
Right. Depression
was another one. I mentioned that. But, there's some other like more serious disorders people can have. They can have major depressive disorder. There are other psychological disorders like that are quite more serious that require medication and things like that. And so there's a lot of people that are unmedicated and they're just self-medicating with substances. These things need to be addressed. Like I was never officially diagnosed with depression or anything like that. Like no. I've just, and to be fair, I never went to see a psychiatrist to say, hey, you have all these things. I got sober. I started working toward being a better man. And I quickly discovered that I didn't seek drugs and alcohol anymore because I was working on a lot of those things. I was working on being less selfish. I was working on considering other people before myself more than anything. I was working on those underlying behaviors of let's just sit in boredom and see what that's about. Let's just be present. Let's just be present right now.
Yeah.
Why do you keep trying to screw this up? Like there's this infinite mystery of life that lies right in front of you. Why do you keep trying to put a filter on it with drugs and alcohol?
Being present and grounded is one of the most beautiful things that you can actually experience. And a lot of people don't experience that when they are under the influence.
Yeah. And the next one I've got here on this list is the repair. Let's call it repair. Repairing relationships, whether that be with employers, with your children, with your friends, with your spouse. Doesn't matter what it is, but that repair you have to swallow the biggest pill of humility that you ever have in your entire life. Some people are, like David Ruffin said, I ain't too proud to beg. Well, some people are. Some people are too proud to say I was wrong. They're too proud to say that I did these things to you. I regret them immensely. I'm going to work toward being a better person. One, because that means they have to commit to it and they have to do what they're going to say or they're going to be called out on it. And the other piece of it is that you have to face the fact in the music that you have really affected someone in a negative way. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough pill to swallow. Really, really humbling. The next one is like this, I'm just going to call it growing up. I had to grow up and that was really scary. That was scary for me. Like, I felt like I was 26, the day before my 27th birthday. I was technically 26, but I was really 27, my last day of 26 when I got sober. And that's young for sobriety.
Yeah,
for a lot of people. It's young. I've known people younger. I've known people that got sober. I knew a guy that got sober at 19, still sober today. Been sober longer than me.
Yeah.
That's a wild. I cannot fathom getting sober before I ever got started. But there was just this all-encompassing idea of growing up. It was like, listen, the party's over. You've had your fun. You've had an amazing run. Like you can retire with the best of them in the Hall of Fame, but it's time to hang it up. And it was sort of depressing. And I think that this is going to sound crazy, but I mourned that old life in some ways. Mm-hmm. The thrill of it all, waking up every morning knowing that as soon as I got that stuff in my system, I would know exactly how I was going to feel. And I would be talkative and happy. And like that was going away. And it was going to be replaced with the uncertainty of life. And that was really scary. But I was also really, really up to the challenge. And I couldn't wait to do like normal adult shit. I couldn't wait to be like a normal guy. I just couldn't wait to be a square and have normal problems again. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And it was sort of scary, but I knew that it was going to be better than what I had. And I got this buddy. He's been on the show before. His name's Steve. He's incredible. He always says like buy a ticket, ride the ride. Like what's the absolute worst thing that could happen if you really gave this 100%? You did everything that people have been recommending, but you've been so reluctant to do. Like get a therapist and work a program of some kind. Like really buy in if you've worked a program before, but you just found it didn't work and you just say it doesn't work for me. Really buy into something, whatever it might be for you, to really do it. Like what's the worst outcome that could come from that?
Right.
Like what is it? Like think about it.
I have no idea.
You might waste some gas money going back and forth. You might feel like you've wasted some of your time, but I would disagree. I think that you're probably going to learn some interesting things about just life in general, about yourself. The worst thing that happens if you stay the course, we could talk about that all day long. Like, we all know what that is. If you stay the course of what you're doing, what's the worst case scenario? Your children never talk to you again. You send them to all kinds of their own issues. You completely break your wife down. I've seen spouses and partners, not personally, but read stories of them taking their own lives because they could not deal with the abuse that was doled out, whether that be not just physical, emotional abuse and psychological abuse.
Yes.
I mean, you lose a job, you end up in jail, you harm somebody else by mistake. Not really mistake if you're drinking and driving, but you know, these are the things that happen. This is what you have to look forward to, or you just die. You die a premature death because your body can only take so much. Mm-hmm. The alternative is you waste some gas money and maybe you drink some shitty coffee somewhere. Yeah. That's it. Right. Buy a ticket, ride the rides. See what happens. What's the worst that could happen? And have this magical thought, like, why not me? Like, why not me? Like, why? If this guy is saying this, and I hear people say this shit all the time, and I don't want you to think that it's necessarily easy, because there were days that were really difficult. It's not the easiest thing in the world. I'm sitting here now 11 years removed from it, but there were times like that first year was really tough, man. That first 90 days was horrible. Horrible. First 90 days sucked. That first year was really tough, but it got progressively easier. It got easier and easier and easier. And I learned more about myself and the world and its people. I started to feel part of just the community of the world in general. Like, I started to feel like I had a seat at the table. I belonged. I didn't feel like I was on the outskirts with these like junky friends and just, you know, not talking about my own friends. I'm talking about just, you know, the dealers and all that stuff. Right. Just like growing up, like look forward to growing up. Look forward to it. Like, just give something a shot that's got a better track record than what you currently have. Try something. Do something. If you're doing nothing, it's not enough. It's just not enough. You can be doing better. You could be doing more. Why are you trying to mail it in? Why are you trying to half-ass it? Yeah. And I'm saying this because I'm like you. I'm just like you. I've been like you. I've been one of you. It wouldn't be the same coming from your wife. In fact, your wife has probably said all this shit before. I guarantee you she has. You just ignored her because she's your wife and she's nagging. I'm telling you, as someone who's been there before, someone who's just like you, someone that actually gets it, you could be the most amazing version of you. If I told you to write down right now everything that you wanted out of sobriety, and I told you to put it on a piece of paper and mail it to me, and then I came back to you after you had a year, you would look at that list and laugh because it would not even come close to touching what you actually got. I promise you that. I swear that will happen. Things might get a little tougher before they get easier because addiction's like a freight train. For sure. Just because you stop doesn't mean that train stops rolling. I know this guy named Rich. Rich died, I think he was 9 years sober. Natural causes, died sober. Amazing, beautiful person. But he's like, man, when I got sober, I had civil judgments, tax liens. I was getting food from the church. My parents were paying my electricity bill and my rent. And his wife wouldn't talk to him. And it stayed that way for about a year. Yeah. It was rough. It didn't just get better just because he got sober, but he stayed the course. He started to repair relationships. He started to act right.
Think how worse that would have gotten had he not gotten help.
Oh my God.
It would have been even worse on down the line.
Yeah, like his kids wouldn't even talk to him when he got sober. Right. They wouldn't come anywhere near him because they heard this shit before. They'd seen him try before. They'd lost faith that he could ever do it. But he just stayed the course. He stayed miserable and white knuckled it for like 9 months. And then he said one day it all just kind of made sense to him. And he's like, it wasn't about just not drinking or not taking drugs anymore. It was about trying to be a better person, trying to be a better man, trying to grow. And growth can be, you know, maybe you want to grow and you're like, when we talked about some of the things that help people get sober, like fitness is a big one for me. Like I had to get feel good chemicals somewhere. Yeah. And they came from exercise. Yeah. That's a really big one.
Which is natural.
Yeah. So like you want to focus on that. That's wonderful. That's going to increase, you know, one part of your human capital. Another one might be like spiritually, maybe you've had a spiritual life before and you want to, you know, rediscover like the religion of your youth or God of your youth. Maybe you want to take a different path altogether. Maybe you want to go meditating in the woods. Do something.
Oh, that's fun.
Something, right?
Yeah.
You want to increase your relationships. Like you want to build those. You want to do all kinds of, the possibilities are limitless. But when you're going to stay on the path of drinking alcohol and everything else, like you cannot show me a cost benefit analysis that makes sense for the case of staying drinking. You can't. It doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. The only thing that you could say is that it's more fun.
Yeah.
And that sort of just depends on how you perceive fun. But it would be disingenuous to say that sober is always more fun. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
You go to a club, like a nightclub, it's not that fun if you're sober. It's just not. Like you can only have so many Red Bulls and the music's loud and you get tired. It's just not that fun. It's fun if you're drunk. I just don't go to a lot of nightclubs anymore. I do other stuff with my time.
We're old.
That's part of it too. Yeah. But I just do more stuff. I just, you will find other things to do with your time. You will find purpose. You will find what you were meant to do. I just implore you to try it. Just buy a ticket, ride the rides, give it a shot. What's the absolute worst thing that could happen?
Yeah. And your partner is not crazy if they're asking you to stop drinking, because they're not just asking you to stop drinking. There's so much more to it than that. It's more about just being available to them.
That's all there is.
And being an equal partner. And
they're asking for the person you promised to be when you got into this.
Yeah.
That's it. You sold them a bill of goods and you did not deliver on that promise.
Yeah.
That's it.
So it's so much more than the drinking.
When you get into a relationship with somebody, like, don't you want to grow old together? That doesn't just mean fucking age together. You want to grow together. You want to grow together. I was the same person at 27 when I got sober that I was when I was 17 when I really started getting heavy into drugs and alcohol.
Yep.
I just sort of stunted me. You were just living with the 17-year-old. Mm-hmm. I had a beard, turning gray, but I was 17 inside. Yeah. That's what they're talking about. That's the frustrating part. So you'll forgive them if they get a bit frustrated with you. I don't blame them. I don't blame my wife for being frustrated with me. I think that the greatest gift that you can give yourself and your family is to give recovery an honest shot. Just try it.
Yep.
What can it hurt, right? What can it hurt? It's not easy. There will be challenges along the way. You might have slips. Do not stop trying to stop. No matter what. Don't ever stop trying to stop, because one day you will get it. You will get it. Just think about the damage you cause along the way. Get serious about it and just know that it gets better. And I'm just like one person, right? There are millions of speakers like me, much, 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 much better, that are out there that have amazing stories of recovery. I just, like you were reading earlier about like the thought behind just stop the drinking and like how it's not just about the alcohol. Mm-hmm. And I think part of it comes from people like me telling their success stories about, my life was shit. I quit drinking. Things got better. Like that's such an oversimplification.
Right.
Like
and
I stopped drinking.
Really real how that's not the reality.
It's not. Like I stopped drinking. That was step one. Then I had to pick up the pieces of my life and learn to grow up in double time really, really, really fast.
You had to learn how to stop being an asshole.
More than anything. Like that was a big part of it, right? Like underlying the fact that I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, I was a dick. Like I was an ass. I was immature. I was a complete asshole.
Right. That was my biggest beef with you. It wasn't the whole addiction, alcoholism thing. It was the fact that you were an asshole and wouldn't grow up.
But you will never not be an asshole if you just stop drinking.
Right.
You won't.
Nope.
You will just be a sober asshole.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of them out there. Congratulations. You've done nothing. You've accomplished nothing.
Yeah.
Like you stop drinking. Okay. Yeah. Your liver's going to thank you. Right.
Physically things will get better, but you're not growing, you're not changing, you're not shifting, you're not becoming the person that you're actually meant to be. You're not your authentic self right now.
No, and much like my wife challenged my manhood for all those years, I'm going to challenge yours right now.
Yeah.
What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Like, let's do this, man. Let's go. Let's do this thing together. It can be done. It is doable. It is not reserved for some magical number of people who are smart. I am a dipshit and I figured it out. You will have no problem. I promise you. You can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. Yeah. I promise you. So with that, I leave you with tons of love, sending you so much love. Like I know this is not easy. I hope if anything at all, you've gained some kind of perspective from this and understand where your loved ones are coming from that sent this to you. And just know that they're not nagging. They love you more than anything in the world. And I just hope that at some point in your life, you can love yourself as much as they love you. Truly. and you can return that to them one day, somehow, some way. First things first, so let's get it together. So that's all I have here. I think that's all I've got.
All right.
Pretty solid. Did you have anything to add?
I don't.
Okay. All right. It's getting late. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening. If you've listened this long, we'll get back to our standard topics for next week, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, and if you listened to this and you thought, hey, that wasn't so bad, we've got about 100 other episodes that would enlighten you on things that spouses and partners go through.
Mm-hmm.
My wife gives a lot of her perspective on things, but I'm involved in just about every episode as well, giving you my perspective from an addict. And yeah, I'm not going to baby anyone through this thing. Like, it's really difficult, and we do some shitty things to people. Now it's time to make those things right. And there is a way. Recovery is possible. We do recover, but it doesn't happen by accident. So let's be intentional about it. Let's make it happen. All right. Till next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
And we'll see you.
Bye.